This week on Taste Utah, we're at High West in Wanship visiting their distillery and their restaurant, the Refectory, to learn how the perfect blending of rye whiskey and chef-crafted culinary food experiences are continuing to help protect and celebrate the West, all while putting Utah on the map as a do-not-miss dining destination. We always encourage responsible consumption and keeping alcohol out of the hands of anyone under 21 years old. And with that said, let's get tasting. Taste Utah is always bringing you local flavors from seeds to our authentically Utah restaurants. Behind every good food story is a great people story. It's our farmers, artisans, chefs, restaurateurs, and hospitality professionals that make Utah a dining destination. Food is a necessity, and it's how we cultivate it, share it, and experience it together that truly creates our unique community. You always have a seat at this table. Are you ready to taste Utah?
We're in Wanship and we have a real treat. We're visiting the Refectory and the Distillery. They are cranking out bottles of amazing High West, but also extraordinary food. We're gonna go meet with Chef, we're gonna go meet with Isaac, and he's gonna talk to us all about this new initiative that they are launching with Campfire Whiskey. Hey, they are protecting the West. Let's do this. Isaac!
Hey Katie, nice to see you again.
It's nice to see you.
Welcome to High West.
It is gorgeous up here.
We've got our distillery behind me over here.
Okay.
Guest experience, the refectory here.
Love that. Refectory, what does that mean?
That's like an old mining term for dining hall.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, so this is where people can enjoy food, and there's all sorts of great High West swag they can buy.
It's where the tours meet.
And where we might be talking about this amazing new initiative with your campfire whiskey.
Protect the West.
Yeah.
So we'll talk in there. We've got some whiskey poured for us to taste.
Okay.
So if you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready to dive in head first.
Let's go.
The whiskey waters are deep. I like to say I feel like High West brought back single-handedly rye whiskey and like made it cool again because you made it delicious.
We really tried to start that conversation again. David Perkins and his wife, fell in love with rye whiskey, back in the day, and we were really able to strike when the iron was hot and make some really interesting products that kind of came onto the scene at the right time. So rye whiskey is still our bread and butter. We make a lot of rye whiskey next door in the production facility. It's something that we're really passionate about.
This is really exciting. So you are you've just relaunched Campfire.
Taking it to a national audience again.
Yeah.
It's been a staff favorite for at High West for a number of years.
It's one of my favorites.
We've kept it close to the chest in Utah, but now it's going out to the masses again.
So cool. Every time I go to a southern state where, they're known for their whiskeys and their bourbons and their dirty rye whiskey, and I see High West in their whiskey selection, I always feel such a sense of pride because you started here in Utah and you just blew up.
Yeah, it's been a really fun, fast ride since 2009 when we opened up our doors.
Yeah.
We're sitting here at the Refectory, which we opened in 2015. It's a big production facility and guest experience. We have really tried to elevate blending whiskey and have invested heavily in our own make whiskey production. So we're just trying to do our part to elevate a craft whiskey and show what we can do with rye whiskey in the West.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, so they hear Campfire Whiskey and they're like, oh, that's a cute name, but it actually has this campfire, this smoky quality to it.
Campfire is one of our more complicated blends that we do here at the distillery. So it starts off with an older American bourbon base. We add in a little bit of rye whiskey for a little bit of spice. And then kind of that third component that really kicks it up a notch is the addition of peated malt whiskey. So we've partnered with a distillery in Scotland. And we blend that in at a small portion to give this interesting wood smoke and barbecue note, which is what makes campfire so interesting, I think.
You haven't forgotten your roots, and I think that's what's so special about this campfire whiskey, which like I'm already feeling warm just standing by, but that you're actually seeing some of these things that are happening in the West, like forest fires, and saying, what can we do and how can we help to support preventing them?
Absolutely. So we had a forest fire at the top of Parley's Canyon, which is just right over the hill from us, and it affected a bunch of our employees. When we partnered with Wildland Firefighter Foundation, it was really close to home. It was close to our heart, and it was a very direct way to give back to the community. So it's part of our Protect the West program, and we're excited to be partnered with that really cool charity.
What are you doing with them? I mean, it's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, so we're pledging a $50,000 donation this year, and they work directly with families of fallen firefighters to help those in need. So it's a really cool, direct way to give back to people affected by wildland fires.
What happens now next door on this massive scale?
So it's not too dissimilar from the beer making process. Cool. So we bring grain in from regional suppliers. We use a lot of malted barley like they do in the brewing process. We also use corn, wheat, and rye also in ours. So we grind it into a coarse food flour, mix it with water, and heat it up to make our distiller's mash. And then instead of separating that sweet sugar water, the wort, from the grain solids, we just chuck everything into the fermenter with some yeast and let it go. So we make about 8.5% alcohol in about 70 hours or so. And then at that point, it's ready to go into the still. We pull it off, kind of like a big, expensive copper tea kettle.
Like with beer, you add hops in, you can have finishing hops, or you can have like the hops that you add early on in the process.
Right.
Where are you adding like the campfire smoke and some of those different things?
Good question. So no hops in our process. We will distill the alcohol out of the distiller's beer through the still. It goes into a barrel and sits there for a number of years. Once we deem that it's ready to be blended, we dump the whiskey out. At that time, it's colored, picks up 100% of its color from the barrel. And then at that point, we're ready to blend components together. And so up until that point, we're looking at distinct components of the whiskey. But once they're all matured, we're blending those in certain ratios to get the exact flavor profile we need. We don't want it to be too sweet and not smoky enough. We don't want people to get totally blown out by the smoke and have no sweetness to kind of back it up. So that's our job in the blending lab, is to try and adjust those levels. Okay,
that's really cool. So that's like where the chemistry of the flavor comes in, is in the blending lab.
It's chemistry. It's also a lot of art. It's a very fun process, and we work on a tight team here to kind of provide positive tension, to bring a bunch of different profiles and likes and dislikes to the table to make sure that we make whiskey that a lot of different people really enjoy.
Yeah, I think that the whiskey making process is so fascinating because there's so much nuance to it, and it's not like you're just taking shots of High West whiskey. Like you're sipping them in stemware that was designed to allow you to smell and allow you to engage your senses in the tasting process.
Absolutely. We do all of our sensory in these small tulip glasses, and the narrow head at the top of the glass helps to kind of focus the aroma right up into your nose, so you can really understand what in the blending lab, what small changes are doing to the whiskey, or at home, so you can better enjoy, better understand.
I'm just curious, the different colors. What is that indicative of?
So the distilling process will generate clear ethanol.
Okay.
No color distills unless you've done something wrong. And so 100% of the color you see in any whiskey generally comes from the barrel. Now you can add a little bit of caramel coloring to kind of adjust the color in some products. None of ours have any of that in it.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
But you can see Campfire here is our first glass. It's like beautiful. A really lovely orange color. That's from the bourbon barrels that held the bourbon and rye. The second one, Midwinters, this has like a really lovely red hue to it, and that's from the port barrels. So, you know, we finish in first use ruby and tawny port, so you pull a lot of that like
You can actually smell it on the nose.
raspberry character out, which, you know, is flavor and color.
That's crazy. Like it does have that, if I were to drink a tawny port, it does have sort of a similar nose.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's by design. We really
so
like
cool.
to feature those red wine notes in that whiskey.
Yeah.
We also have a barrel select sample here, which is a fun thing that kind of came out of our R&D lab. And it's our whiskeys finished in different innovative casks. So today we're drinking Rendezvous Rye finished in a gin barrel. So we have a good relationship with my friend Chris Barlow at Beehive Distilling. Chris is taking ex-Chardonnay barrels and re-charring them himself, and then he puts his gin in there. And so this is kind of a whole different beast. There's a lot
smells
of
caramely.
yeah, there's a lot of sage and rose in his gin, which I think really sets the botanicals off in this rye whiskey.
Ooh.
So
We walk into the still house. What's the process? What are we gonna see?
So we see a lot of big stainless steel tanks
Okay.
at first. We'll go up the stairs on the first mezzanine. That's kind of the control center. That's where our distillers on duty can monitor the process with computer screens and with their ears and with their nose. And then we see our grain receiving area where we mix grain and water into our mash cooker, which is our first big tank. That's where the starches are broken down from the long spaghetti strands that exist kind of naturally within the grain into easily digestible small polymer units, small monomer units.
Okay.
And then those will get transferred into the fermenters, which are the next 4 tanks down the line. In the fermenters is where the yeast consumes the sugar. It makes what we affectionately refer to as the active component of whiskey, the alcohol. But then it also makes all these really interesting flavor and aroma compounds, the inactive ingredients, which are just as important. After that, we then transfer our distiller's beer to the still.
The distiller's beer.
The distiller's beer. We go from distiller's mash to distiller's beer.
Okay.
Yeah, or wash is also known as. And then the still will extract all the alcohol, those flavor and aroma compounds that give it character. And then it gets sent to a holding tank until it's ready to go into barrels.
This is honestly one of my favorite things, is learning about like the craftsmanship. It's science and it's art. It's a combination of both things, and it's also the hands of the people that are doing it. If it was someone else, it would have a different taste, it would have a different flavor, and that's just the reality. So it's cool to be able to taste your contributions to High West, to Utah's food and beverage community through sampling these.
Well, thanks for tasting with us. It's been my great pleasure to put these whiskeys together, and I was so happy to share them with you today.
Yay! Well, cheers, my friend.
Cheers.
Chef,
Oh, hey, Katy.
how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I just worked up an appetite over
bet.
at the distillery.
I bet. Lots to see and do over there.
I mean, there is so much intention going into
Yep.
every single bottle
Yep.
of High West whiskey.
Yeah,
It's out of control.
It's amazing what's happening with the brand of High West, and they're really taking a big bite, and they really want to get out there in the market. And the juice is some of the best I've had.
Tell us a little bit about the food at High West. I mean, this spread is unbelievable. What do we have?
We're at the Refectory now, and what's kind of great from a chef's perspective is that we have 3 properties.
Okay.
And we kind of get to play with each property. We have our fine dining, which is the Nelson Cottage.
Okay.
We also do a lot of corporate events there. And then we obviously have the heartbeat of our business, which is High West Saloon. We call it Old 703.
We were there back in 2016, 2017,
Sure,
I want to say.
sure.
And so we toured those facilities, and the Nelson Cottage is so beautiful.
It really
And
is.
It really is like a hidden gem.
Yep.
Like you feel like you have an insider access. If you know about it,
Yep.
you know about the dinners you put on there.
It's not so much a hidden gem anymore.
Oh, dang
which
it,
is-
word is out.
But if you want to get in, I can hook it up and we'll make
do.
something happen.
Do.
So anyway, the Refectory was established in 2016,
Okay.
and it's fully formed. After COVID, people really want to get into whiskey tourism. They want to also enjoy something that has a family aspect. And they found that the Refectory is the best place to kind of meld all those things. So tons of families come up. We're doing tours nonstop. People are really getting into, you know, whiskey and bourbon and just understanding the story and the process. But we want to make sure that we feed them.
I mean, this barbecue sauce is out of control. I'm like dipping my fries in it.
Excellent.
So tell us what we have on the table in front of us.
Sure. This is a dish that we just put on. We actually have it on both menus at the saloon and at the Refectory. We partnered with Great Plains Bison, and they are doing a special cut for us. So it's basically a fajita meat, but it's a little bit thinner. So we have it's just a bison carne asada taco with pickled red onions, cotija, and chipotle crema on the bottom. Over here we have one of our staples, and we can also find this sometimes on our brunch buffet setup. So this is it's a Niman Ranch brisket to start, but we smoke it and then we make a hash out of it. Mix it up with some Kennebec potatoes, right? Shallot, garlic, fresh herbs, all the good stuff.
Love that.
Sear it up nice and crispy on the flat top, and then, you know, the way I prefer is with 2 runny eggs on top.
I mean, nothing sexier than a couple of runny eggs.
Exactly. And then we have some whiskey coffee barbecue sauce on the side. You know, it's just like, even like what you're doing now, that's generally what happens at the table. If you don't pour it on, your neighbor or your spouse will be grabbing their fries and dipping it in the sauce.
Yeah, it's so good. And then one thing I have to say about this is that it seems simple enough, like, oh yeah, a hash, but like the attention to detail of ingredients that's supporting that dish is really, really all-star.
We can walk it back to when we actually get the brisket. So we have to brine that brisket. And then we have to rub that brisket and then smoke that brisket. So just that process alone is about 72 hours before we can actually get into mixing all the other ingredients, the potatoes, the onion, the garlic, etc.
And then of course, like, who doesn't like crinkle fries?
I'm glad you said that. I'm originally from Seattle, so I'm a nerd for fish and chips, but I couldn't, you know, in good conscience, like get fresh Alaskan halibut and do an Alaskan halibut fish and chips. I mean, I could have, and it would have been great, but I was like, well, why don't we play around with a redfish? And we thought about salmon at first. We found that salmon is just a little bit too dense because of just the oily flavor profile. Trout has that perfect kind of just structure where you can handle it, you can dip it, even the skin is crispy enough to bite it off.
It's like flaky, fall apart. It's so good, and it's trout. I mean, that's what's swimming in the streams.
That's
in
the
Utah,
West.
right?
That's the mountains. We're one of the best fly fishing states in the Union, probably in the world for that. And then just the other little details that go into this dish. We have a little coleslaw that you generally find with fish and chips, but we do it with Brussels sprouts. We do it with Brussels sprouts.
Oh my gosh, how cool!
And then a nice, just kind of slightly spicy jalapeno tartar sauce. When you want something sweet, we like to also keep it nice and simple. So this is beautiful bright lemon curd, mountain berries tossed in a whiskey simple syrup, a little bit of whiskey whipped cream on top, and then we have a nice little waffle cookie on top. So a little crunch, a little sweet, a little tart, some berries.
What's your favorite whiskey?
When I first started working here, I really didn't get campfire. I really didn't understand it.
Okay.
Between that time and now, I've gotten into scotches. And by getting into scotches has kind of, I've developed a stronger affinity for the campfire. So I would have to say campfire is right now, because it will rotate into something else. Campfire is my favorite thing to sip on now.
Well, I could sit and talk to you obviously like all day, and I could eat all of this. I mean, it is so good and so clever. But I would love to pop back in the kitchen and just make a dish together.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. All right, Chef, you're making the hash. Cannot wait. This is a beautiful kitchen. Stoked to be back here with you. What are we doing first?
So super easy. So like what we mentioned earlier was that there's a lot of pre-work that needs to be done for the hash, like the brining and the smoking and the potatoes and all that stuff. But right now we're at the execution level, so we're kind of like, think greasy spoon diner. We want something to get up and down in about 5 minutes. So we have the hash right here. I'm just gonna get, everything is better with butter. So we're just gonna drop that out.
Oh, and then the music starts.
The main thing we want though is we want to make sure that we establish a crust on the other side.
Okay.
So we almost kind of want to patty it up a little bit.
All right, nice. So you're gonna bring it all together and then just kind of.
And hopefully when I flip this thing, it all stays together. So the general tendency for the home chef is I just need to touch it and pat it and touch it and pat it. This is just like
leave it alone, let it do its thing.
Go drink your coffee, come right back. We're gonna hit it with a little bit of seasoning.
Nice, some Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper, kosher salt,
Love it.
fresh ground pepper.
Yeah, beautiful flakes of salt. Look at that nice white spatula. Ooh, beautiful.
There we go.
Look at the crust on that baby.
So I'm sure in all of your experience you've heard this term GBD.
Yeah.
What is it?
No, what is it? JBD?
GBD.
GBD.
Golden brown and delicious.
Oh, golden brown delicious. I've never heard the acronym. I
Really?
love it.
That's one that stuck with me very early on in my career, and just like when you think about like French fries and potatoes, you always want to incorporate GBD.
GBD. Oh, how good.
So here we go.
Yay.
There we go.
Beautiful.
And turn that up.
Oh, beautiful execution. And that's like the chef's touch, right? Where like, you don't need two hands, you just do one hand.
Assumedly, yeah. I spent a good portion of my career doing
Assumedly.
doing brunch, so it sometimes it eludes me, but sometimes it's right there. We're gonna go ahead and plate up.
Yay. Okay. So we start with
Hash first.
hash.
And I
it's
just
so
like to kind of
pretty.
just pop it just a little bit, just to kind of let some of that steam out.
Yeah, very wise.
And then we're gonna go over here.
This is the money
We're
shot.
gonna take our sunnies, and we just want to go like kind of 2/3, 1/3.
Yeah,
And with the butter on the plate, that's one of the best parts about it.
gorgeous. And then
And-
this is where we finish it.
I like to finish with a little bit on top.
Oh,
That's just me. And then
and
we'll
is
put
that the barbecue sauce?
that is the coffee barbecue sauce.
Oh, so good. Chef, this has just been such an extraordinary experience, from speaking with Isaac about all of the amount of effort and work and care that goes into making whiskeys, to everything that you've done to curate a phenomenal experience, to invite people up, to create an inclusive environment where you walk in and you feel so proud to either be a Utahn or to be visiting Utah and getting to experience something of this caliber. My heart is full, my belly is full, and I just feel like I've learned so much. I'm
Thank
just
you
so
so
grateful.
much. We're so glad to have you guys.
It's so good to see you.